How's everybody doing? Enjoyed for the first day of KubeCon so far? How many of you actually enjoyed the KubeCon so far? All right, awesome.
Too much enjoyment.
Maybe when I ask you the same question 2 days later, maybe you'll be more exhausted. But so excited to see you all here. My name is Lin Sang. I'm here to moderate a panel about AI agent. Can we trust or not trust? So I'm the head of open source with Solo.io. I actually just published a book this week, AI Agents in Kubernetes. So I would love you all line up, ask innovative questions to my awesome panelists, and I'll try to give you a book for you to provide feedback for my work. All right, let me actually start the panel by introduce our panelists. So Andy, can we go with you this time first?
Hello, a very good afternoon. I'm Andy Martin, founder and CEO at ControlPlane. We are an 8-year-old bootstrapped cloud-native security consultancy with a specialism on regulated industries here in the US, in Europe, and in APAC as well. And we've been operationalizing big clusters for some of our clients and have a lot of questions.
Hey everyone, my name's Hannah Foxwell. I'm here with Mindgard. We are an offensive security tool specializing in AI apps because AI apps are vulnerable in new ways compared to traditional apps. You might want to know if your AI chatbot is vulnerable to data extraction, jailbreaking, or even just plain old reputational risk by saying something embarrassing to your customers. So Mindgard is an AI tool that helps find vulnerabilities in other AI tools.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ricardo, Aravena, and I'm an AI infra lead. I've been involved with open source for many years, over 8 or 10 years, specifically with Kubernetes and the CNCF. And I've worked in many different companies over the last 20, 25 years, small companies, large companies, the last 15 years primarily on an infrastructure side, and the last maybe couple of years or 3 years more on the AI side, or in the last couple or year or so, I think more on the GPU infrastructure side. So pretty excited to be here and to talk about security with agents.
Hi everyone, I'm Yuval Kohavi. I'm the chief architect at Solo.io. We have been doing a lot of networking related stuff, network security with Istio, if you're familiar. And now we're applying those same principle to the AI world. So, yeah.
Awesome. How many of you actually attended the security colo yesterday? All right, a few of you, because we ran a panel also yesterday. It gives me a sense of how many of you were in there. Thank you. All right, I'm going to start with the first question I have, but the goal is really not just for me to ask my panelists question. So I want you all, if you have any questions in mind, please line up on that microphone, just so we know, so we can have you ask your own questions. So I'm going to ask, what do you see organization adopt AI agents today? Maybe Yuval, we can start with you.
Yeah, definitely. So from our perspective, the users I've been talking with, they're using a lot of the existing agents like Cloud Code, like Copilot, and where they do innovate at this point is creating a lot of MCP servers to customize the agents to their use cases. Some minority write custom agents, but I think right now at least what I'm seeing, the users I talk to, it's a lot of using, the existing agents where they kind of help them do more stuff with custom MCP. And there's this whole thing, who's responsible for what. It's kind of organizations, I feel like, are in the starting point of understanding how they will fit their IT model.
Can I ask one more question for you and for all the panelists? At the end, can you say what's your favorite AI agent?
What's my favorite AI agent?
For you personally, yeah.
Personally, I use Copilot probably all day, every day. So.
All right, thank you.
I'll go with that.
Yeah, go ahead, Ricardo.
Yeah, I can go. So, what was the question again?
Okay, what do you see organizations adopt AI agents today? And for you personally, what's your favorite AI agent?
So I think it's kind of growing quite a bit now, but I've seen a lot of the coding agents, out there, and a lot of people are using, like he mentioned, Cloud Code and Copilot, and there's variety of these coding tools like Windsurf and Cursor, right? So those are actually pretty popular now. I think what I've heard is organizations trying to use the agent pattern to do tasks that are easy to automate, that are just simple, and then people can offload like the workforce, and they can just go out and do things and come back maybe the next day or after some time and have some answers or have some tasks actually completed. But that's generally like the trend that I'm seeing now.
What is your favorite?
Oh, my favorite agent. Yeah, I do like Cursor, and I also like it's like shell development environment called Warp, and it's warp.dev. But in the end, all of these tools actually use the major models, so they actually talk to Anthropic Claude 4.5 and GPT-5 and so forth, right? But I like the setup because it's like a shell terminal, and you can ask questions, and you can actually do things like you want to set up an application on your system, right? Instead of just typing brew install something on your Mac, you can just tell it like, I want to install this application on my Mac, and it goes and does it itself.
All right, thank you. Hannah, anything you want to add?
I think there's two dimensions that I see organizations really thinking deeply about deploying agents. The first one is internally, like making their own internal processes much more efficient, being able to run a more lean organization because you don't have to handle so much paperwork and bureaucracy. The agents are taking care of that for you. So when I was at Sleek, and this is actually many years ago, that we introduced the role of the sort of AI operations lead, and it didn't sit within engineering, it sat within business operations. It was about actually how can we do business more efficiently by deploying this technology. So that's one dimension. I think the other is very much in like the innovation space and the product space. Like how can we serve our customers better? How can we do what we do for our customers, whether you're a security company or an e-commerce company or an insurance company or bank, whatever, like how can we serve our customers better using this technology? So I see lots of experimentation happening in both those areas, and I think a lot of companies are doing both simultaneously.
What is your favorite?
Oh, my favorite. Am I allowed to talk about an agent I built myself?
Of
Yes,
course.
my most adorable agent was a scoring agent. So the system that I had built, it was an agentic workflow process that would go and answer questions from a knowledge base. So you give it a fixed set of questions, it would go and retrieve the answers, and then the scoring agent would go and score the information that was retrieved. And I tried to make it as simple as possible. It's like, did the answer to that question have like good vibes or bad vibes? And LLMs, like they're so positive. They are so positive. So we retrieved some information from the knowledge base that said something like, oh, we identified 45,000 critical vulnerabilities in the in the software. And it went, great, 10 out of 10. That's a great answer. And it was like, no, that's actually a bad answer. So the amount of experimentation I had to do with prompting to get a scoring agent to actually give me a negative answer, a negative score, was incredibly enlightening. But I had to give it a really, really awfully negative persona to be able to get it to answer those questions accurately. So yeah, that's my favorite agent.
Oh,
my very, very grumpy scoring agent.
So you're never wrong, actually. Yeah.
You should share your agent on social media. I would actually love to try it too. Andy, what's your thoughts?
For our customers, generally with the potential burden of regulatory fines, getting something wrong, we've seen people in court submit legal documents with hallucinated, falsified citations in them. there's a lot of paranoia. So we see some chatbots for internal service desks. We see some summarization. Generation of documents is a little bit of a gray area. And actually, Hannah and I run the AI security meetup in London. And Mindgard came through and gave a presentation a few months ago. And the CEO there makes the point, or makes the case, that there are only 3 use cases that he sees for AI, which is a bit of a mic drop moment. I won't actually drop the mic. Generation of code, because we've got static analysis, we've got blast chambers, we have deterministic ways to judge the efficacy and validity of that output. Translation, Google Translate, generative adversarial networks, they've migrated from procedural into GANs like 2014, but even before that, 2008 maybe. And 2014 was Transformer, of course. And summarization, translation, summarization, code generation. Not generation of novel thoughts or ideas or papers or poetry, etc. So that's a very interesting challenge. That's where he sees the way that we've trained these models actually having efficacy in a regulated space. And then from a personal perspective, has anyone tried Claude Flow? Anyone tried Claude Flow? Okay, hopefully this is the best tip you've got all day. It wraps Claude code to force agentic decomposition. So it is a token burner, but it will do everything from the command line. It's a super interesting project, and the guy building it has been talking about agentic workflows and sort of code generation for many years. So Claude Flow is super interesting. As a very skeptical and naturally paranoid person, I have my AI tmux terminal, which is just bash, not warp, split into 6. And then I use tmux mirroring. So I type a query in, and it goes to 6 different LLMs at the same time. Comparing Gemini Flash Pro with Gemini Pro, it's incredible. The light models are doing a huge amount very, very quickly at this point. And my favorite agent is also a self-generated piece of work. As a biohacking and sort of data nerd, I collect loads of passive tracking about my life. So I take that daily, and I've got to pull that from about 10 different sources, stick that into a file system that's basically just year, month, day, and then a specific piece of data, build up a huge context window, anonymize as much as possible, and then get it to tell me how well am I living my life today. And it doesn't really suffer from sycophancy. It's that one's pretty brutal.
Well, what does it say about your life today? How's the jet lag?
So what I have it do is then I trained 11 labs on my voice for audio generation, and of course video, image, and audio are valid, probably reasonably good use cases, of course. And I have it in my own voice tell me what I should be doing, which is a kind of biological, psychological hack that I'm not recommending. But yes, so that's my favorite agent. Okay. It is me.
Wow. So after this, you're going to have to demo it to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, but it sounds pretty crazy, though.
Yes, thank you.
All right, we have a few people just walk in. So first of all, welcome. We do have the microphone open. If you have any open questions related to AI agent security, we would love you to ask questions, because this panel is about you, not about us talking here. So your engagement will be really, really lovely. With that, I'm going to ask my second questions. What unique security challenges AI agents introduces today? What's your perspective? Andy, do you want to go first?
Sure. As we know, we have solid principles of not only frameworks, things like NIST, but also standards, like things like CIS benchmarks and things like that, which give us an understanding of how we should deploy secure modern systems. On top of those, we've entered into a gold rush, where everybody wants to be first to get out a specific piece of perhaps open source software or get some funding for something. And we're throwing away a lot of the lessons that we know about how to build secure systems. Whenever we're building a system, a control plane, we begin with a threat model. We look at what the data classifications are and who is going to have access to those. Where are the humans in the system, and where do we risk breaking security guarantees that we need to build into the system? None of these things are contemplated by modern AI systems. Looking at the MCP debacle as an example of how that's worked, we don't really have, we spoke about this briefly yesterday, but the OAuth spec provides for fine scoping and fine-grained authorization and access to resources, but most MCPs just give you God mode to whatever delegated or identity you pass through. So we have done some work in Finos, which is the FinTech open source organization, which is another Linux foundation as a sister to the CNCF, and we built an AI governance framework with essentially the banks of the world and the hyperscalers. What that kind of brings to the fore is no one's really very clear what's going on. There's a huge number of different frameworks and standards that have come out. We exist mired in a state of legal uncertainty. Obviously, the European Union is just trying to pass its own AI Act that is currently getting watered down by lobbyists. And sort of compare and contrast, think about what California tried to do to impose taxes on model sizes even, and sort of the amount of money that people are making. So that uncertainty, we're doing our best to wade through it by centralizing that information, and the Finos AI readiness governance framework is all open source and public.
I think for me, what I'm seeing is a lot of non-technical users experimenting with AI agents. And I think that's a slightly different challenge for security teams because those folks haven't necessarily had a lot of training and awareness around building safe and secure systems, and to get something working quickly and give it the access it needs to do something useful requires you to give it fundamentally like a lot of access. And I think that's one of the risks that I see security teams wrestling with. You don't want to prevent people from having access to these tools, but also there is an education aspect, which is like, how do you do sensible things with them? Like, for example, like an AI agent that you give access to your email, potentially has access to reset all of your passwords across every platform that you use that email for authentication on, and those type of unintended consequences. Like if someone gets access to your agent and the agent has access to your email, and your email has the ability to compromise other platforms, I think there are risks that your average user would not foresee if they're just experimenting with the technology. So I think there is a huge education piece there for security teams to take their teams through.
Yeah, makes sense. Ricardo, you want to go first?
Yeah, I think one area that is pretty interesting in its provenance. So we're talking about a lot of MCP servers. So we don't know where they come from. So everybody's building MCP servers. So you go out there, and one example is like Kubernetes MCP servers. I saw maybe 20 different implementations. So there isn't a standard way to vet all these different MCP servers. So that's going to be a challenge. I mean, who's going to be the authority that says, okay, this is a valid one? Who's going to check the checksum or the identity, right? So that's not there. In terms of provenance, I think another challenge is where the data is actually coming from, right? Because you're just chaining agents together, and you don't know who you're sending that data to or where that data is coming from. So, what's the cryptography on the data? Or what's the identity? I mean, how did anybody sign the data, or who owns that data too, right? So that's also a challenge, right? So if you're thinking about, for example, monetizing data, so how do you know whether that data is yours or not, right? In the way these large providers of models like OpenAI or Anthropic train their models that actually go out there and they just pick up data from anywhere in the internet, so nobody knows, right? So that's going to be a big challenge in terms of security.
Yeah, so from what stuff I'm seeing is that there's currently a bit of, shall we say, chaos, organizational chaos around this. Basically, a lot of teams who want to do AI kind of wing it, and now the platform team knows that it's they need to kind of rein it in a little bit. So it's not going to be each one doing their own thing with no accountability. There's a lot of stuff to consider here, like where identity was mentioned, like what's the agent's identity? Is it its own identity, the user's identity? When it's going to use tools, for an agent to do something, more meaningful, it needs to interact with external tools. How do you authenticate with them? If those tools are on the internet, how do you now, map the agent identity to the, internet-facing MCP server identity? So it's kind of like a reboot of microservices, if you will, because kind of the agent can do stuff on its own. Other than the identity aspect, there's a lot of fear of I don't know what these agents are going to do, especially now. We want to optimize the context. We let the agent do more, like code execution, for example. How is that going to work? Are we building Skynet here? So we need to find ways to, we want to let the agent be more independent so we can get more out of it, but we also want to do it in a secure way. So, maybe when it runs code, we should sandbox it so it's not going to just RMRF your cluster. So that's kind of the stuff I'm seeing.
Yeah, thank you. Sounds like we can really trust the agent at this stage. I feel like people are believing, human in the loop. We still need a human supervise what the agent is doing. Hey, you guys are pretty much the most unengaged audience I ever run into. So I have a challenge for you all. Welcome, by the way. So we would love you all to actually ask a question, and in reward, I would love to give you a copy of my book, because my panelists are really interesting. I actually have a couple more questions for them, but it's less about me. It's really about you, and you feel, coming here and actually learn something and have useful discussion. And in fact, if you don't have a question, I have another challenge for you. If you have an answer to any of the question I was asking my panelists, I would love to hear your perspective too, because I believe conference talking is about engagement. If you guys are unengaged, maybe we should just disappear from the stage. So thank you. All right, this gentleman, let's give him a round of applause.
Hi. Similar to what you've been talking about and what I've been hearing a lot today, there seems to be a movement towards, multi-agent, kind of fanning out agents interacting with other agents, kind of dividing workflows up and creating complex, orchestration patterns based on that. How do you see agent security evolving in that environment? I just saw a demo of kind of a multi-cloud, multi-agent type orchestration pattern. How do you see security and identity working in a world where you have agents running in multiple environments, maybe on multiple vendor platforms? Is there any industry motion towards formalizing that? Or what's the state of things there?
I think it's. I'm just going to say I agree with you. I think from a security point of view, things like A2A are absolutely terrifying, because it's not, instead of maybe a more traditional automation, which is sequential, and it's this happens and then this happens. It's more dynamic. It's I can go and ask this this collection of other agents to help me accomplish a task, but then you have to think about, okay, well, what do each of those agents have access to? Because if an agent can request something from another agent in this mesh that you've created, then you just have to assume that all agents have access to everything. And anybody with access to one of those agents will therefore have access to everything. And then you're okay, well, that sounds really silly. Let's not do that. So I agree with your question. I don't have an answer for you. I'm just really I'm just agreeing with it. It's going to be incredibly hard to secure those systems because they're dynamic.
I think things will probably move to be more deterministic in the long run, checking for user IDs, checking provenance, checking for cryptography. So that's still going to be there. The office authorization is another one. It will also depend on the organizations, right? So I think fast-moving organizations will go and play with just something that is open, like no security or little security, and then you'll have maybe like some of the larger organizations. I'm not saying like smaller organizations don't like security, but I mean there may be some, but like that's kind of like the trend sometimes. Like startups actually like to play with cool things, and then they just leave everything open. But then in larger organizations, I'm thinking like financial institutions. They want to lock up everything, so they may decide to just go with like zero trust, and then just say like, we're just barely going to allow people access to our agent platform, right? So and then we're going to go from there, right? And we're going to go little by little, and kind of like starting from zero trust and then going from there.
Yuval, Andy, anything you guys want to add?
Yeah, I know in Solo, and I think also in Microsoft, we were talking about kind of extending OAuth for agents, where whenever an agent calls another agent, we'll generate a new OAuth token for him, kind of containing the whole chain from the user to the original agent to this agent. And then we can make policy decisions with that information in hand. So I don't think it's something that currently exists, but that's kind of the stuff we were looking at.
I think with this cavalcade of new technologies, the most important thing from my perspective is what traditional rules we're about to break here. And looking at, I haven't been through that process, but a threat model, what's the worst that could happen with a multi-agent, multi-cloud system? All right, well, let's say there's some reputational damage because something has, at some point, someone's managed to inject something into training data or into the inference process. How do you trace that back? How do you actually figure out what's happened there? Are the logs distributed across multiple clouds? Are there spans in an observability sense for those chains of reasoning, thought, interagent, whatever it would be? Can we see which human actually got access to these things? So it's really taking it back to fundamentals. I'm building on some of those other things, of course. If we do have a zero trust system, then we've got a workload identity. That at least can give a cryptographic guarantee that the thing that's in the logs came from the place that had that credential at that point in time. And it's really just extrapolating from there. And as I said, we went through this process for this governance framework. There's so many rough edges and sort of potential catastrophic failure conditions that it's based on your startup, the velocity, or your organization, let's say, your risk profile, whatever compliance measures that you operate under, and then working it back from there. And it shuts down a lot of avenues very quickly.
Great question, by the way. I really believe open standards for solving some of these problems, and I appreciate you thinking ahead. A lot of people are doing single cluster, single agent or multiple agent in single cluster, so thankful for that great question across multiple cluster. Do come up, pick up a book if you want one. Thank you. The next gentleman, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, great. So you said related to more determinism approaches and measures to securing these AI agents, and you talked about risk management and threat modeling. I want to challenge that a bit in saying that even in identity security and zero trust, we haven't figured out how to do it so well and good enough today for humans and even non-human identities, and we are now seeing the push for AI agents, and the time to value and time to market is so important in the current landscape of competition. So I don't know if we're seeing that as the solution. But if you think about that, what are good risk management for the inherent non-deterministic things inside these AI agents? Because like, there is a need for something that is entirely new in risk management. Prompt injections and hallucination are like inherent properties, kind of for LLMs, like creativity inherent properties. Even pre-training to LLMs to separate data and instruction context doesn't work. Like 5% of attacks that happens is still like, could be a jail time. So that means basically that we need maybe new risk management to do that. How do you think about this new threat landscape containing prompt injection and indirect prompt injections?
Can I have two volunteers for this question so we have time for the next question? So you choose.
Okay,
you guys choose which one?
I'll try and light speed through an answer then.
But I want you to answer first because I think it's... Yeah.
Okay, I mean, the reference hellscape for this is compound prompt injection between multiple agents, We currently have the concept of a web application firewall equivalent for prompts, and that sits at the front door. What happens if that's divided up between multiple agents, context, RAG, other data that comes into the system? Maybe that's sat in a database. Maybe that came through in a log message from a piece of user context, or it's come in a different way. I mean, this is not contemplated, and again, you need to sort of extrapolate that out. It is intractable, at the moment. So just kind of dialing it back and asking that question about, well, how do we risk manage that? It's on a basis of, I mean, very simply, the output of a threat model would be, well, what's the probability of this happening? What is the impact of it happening to my business? Rate them out of 5, multiply them together. Well, that's a 25 out of 25 that this chatbot is going to instruct my grandmother how to make a bomb. And she didn't ask that question, and my bank is probably not going to be very happy about that. So unfortunately, that does then involve potentially risk-averse legal teams. What we've seen is every CEO in collusion with their CFO saying, this is what we're doing, we can't get left behind. So there is a lot more pressure on legal teams to enable as opposed to gatekeep, as in traditionally. But yes, I would not put my head above that parapet.
So I have a short answer for that. I think the threat model is going to become an AI model as we go forward, right? So I mean, it could be a predictive AI model, or it could be more like a Gen AI, but it's yet to be determined. But because the scale of this is going to blow up like crazy in the next few years, that you're going to have to use some more advanced tools. The same applies to red teams and blue teams, right? So you're going to see red teams trying to break into these systems, using the same tools, and then blue teams, having threat models or Gen AI to try to understand what is happening.
All right, thank you so much for that great question. Are we almost time? Okay, I think maybe we only have time for one more question because we're 1 minute over, and I think we were told we were allowed to be a few minutes over. So we can take one more question, and I'd love to offer Yuval or Hannah to take it first. Go ahead.
Sure.
And the next person, you can still have the book though. Thank you for waiting in line.
So I was just curious, when you guys were talking about agents and then securing them, you mentioned a lot of well, just make sure you understand what this thing has access to, and maybe how that data identification happens, and then what that can lead to further, right? When you're talking about emails, and then you have all access to all these other accounts. So do you think there's some sort of checklist of things that you might be able to first give it access to, and then having a very mature data identification process to understand, okay, this is really the range of that threat model and that impact, and how does that look like? And then I'm curious if you see this kind of going down a NIST path where it's hey, yeah, you can get to version 3 if you do this, version 4 if you do that, and then kind of where you guys think that might end.
I mean, that sounds like a very sensible and practical approach. I mean, just applying principle of least privilege when you're designing these systems at the outset. I think a lot of it is about design and architecture and how you want to solve the problem. So for me personally, I kind of decompose my agents down into the smallest possible amount of responsibility and access that they possibly could. You could create an Uber agent which has got access to all the tools and all the data and all the systems, but the risk profile of that agent is going to be so much greater than if you decompose it down. I know I haven't used A2A yet, so my sort of agentic workflows have been very sequential as well. And so if I know that the agent in step 1 has access to a certain set of data, because of the way it's designed, I know that the agents involved in step 2, 3, and 4 don't have access to that data in the same way. And so I think being intentional about design, I think, and thinking through those risks is probably your best bet right now. Don't go mad. Don't build the most super powerful, I can do everything agent. Well, one, it's not going to work. It's going to be really unreliable. And 2, it's not a good idea from a security point of view.
Cool. Thank you.
Yuval, is there anything you want to add on this topic? Or?
Basically, similar to what you said. From what I see, users it is a concern that I constantly hear, to make sure that the agent doesn't, do stuff it shouldn't. In my perspective, I'm more focused about the tools that allow you to, make sure, give you the crypto guarantees that the agent doesn't do what it shouldn't do. And it's definitely a common thing across the board. Like basically everybody wants, I want to make sure the agent, I give it access to the GitHub MCP. I want to make sure it's not deleted in the repo. So you're not alone here.
All right. I want to take a moment to thank all our panelists, and also most important, thank all of you. I think you guys changed my perspective. You were the most unengaged audience, and then you turned into very engaged. So great job, you all. And for the two person who wants the book, I am here. If you want the book, I have the two last book for the gentleman who asked the question, and the gentleman who was in line to answer the question. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of KubeCon. Thanks.